Welcome back to America Trends. Glad to have you along here on YTA and Biz Talk Radio. I'm Aimee Fuller. You know, the rules for marriage and divorce in America have changed in the past 20 years very drastically. Women are now out earning men. As of 2010, the median full-time salaries of young women were 8% higher than those of their male peers in 147 of the 150 biggest cities in the U.S. Fathers are now winning custody, all kinds of things that are quite different from the past 2, 3, maybe even 4 decades. So there are new rules to divorce and secrets to protecting your wealth, health, and happiness. And that is, in fact, the title of the book of our next guest, our friend of the show, Jacqueline Newman. You can find more about her at nycdivorcelawyer.com. She is managing partner at the matrimonial law firm Berkman, Bacher, Newman and Shine LLP in Manhattan, and we are glad to see her back. This is the new definitive guide for New York for divorce, modern divorce, Jacqueline. It does reveal, you say, how to know whether you are actually ready to get a divorce. And one thing I love when we always talk to you is you actually have how-to books for the man and the woman to see, is this really what you want right now?
Right. So that is one of the things I think you always need to think about. When someone comes and sees me, one of the first things I say to them is, are you sure you want to get divorced? And if they pause for even a moment, I say, you need to go and see a marriage counselor, because divorce is financially expensive, it's emotionally expensive, and it's very hard to turn back from. So you need to make sure it's the right decision for you.
You also measure what it takes for each side to protect personal finances, and what kind of tips can you give our viewers? I know they need to get your book and check it out, but can you give us some tips right now?
Sure. So when going through a divorce, I think one of the major things you need to really be careful about is allowing your emotions to take charge. Emotions are very, very expensive, and what you don't want to do is let this become more of, your attorney meetings and any settlement meetings become more glorified therapy sessions that are very expensive. You really need to kind of keep emotions in check. You need to do everything you can to try to get through this divorce as painlessly as possible, as quickly as possibly in general, most of the time. And really, you want to protect your children. So doing all of that will ultimately result in you protecting your finances as well.
Jacqueline, how do we know? You talk about whether we should get a lawyer or mediator. Can you tell our viewers and listeners what the difference is? And what you tell people who come to you where you think maybe you don't need to talk to me yet?
Absolutely. So what I tell people is there's 3 ways to get divorced. There's mediation, litigation, and what we call collaborative law. And so to give a quick little explanation, so mediation is where you work with one person who's a neutral. Generally, attorneys do not attend those sessions. So the 2 clients will come in, they'll work with one mediator, and a lot of times you'll have attorneys on the outside who really are kind of helping the parties be able to look at things from their own vantage point. So that's mediation. Mediation is a great thing to do if you can handle it. You need to make sure that there's not a huge power imbalance. But generally, if you can do mediation, even if you can do mediation for just the custody part, and you have to move to a different process option for finances, that's fine. But mediation is great if you can do it. However, a lot of people say, you know what, no, I need an attorney in the room. I'm not as financially savvy, or I'm just not comfortable, voicing myself. So in that sort of situation, then the other option you can consider is what's called collaborative law. Collaborative law is where you work with collaboratively trained attorneys, which means we go through a lot of training, and you enter into an agreement saying you're not going to go to court. So there's a very big push on settlement. The collaborative model also has an interdisciplinary approach, so it brings a divorce coach, which is a therapist trained in the model. It brings a financial specialist and a child specialist if applicable. I always say I'm the most expensive player on the team. Why wouldn't you use these other people? The catch to the collaborative process is in the event that it breaks down, and it's voluntary, so either party can say they don't want to do it anymore. At that point, you cannot use that same attorney that you've been working with in litigation. So let's say I'm representing the husband, we're getting along great, we think everything's fine. All of a sudden the wife says, I don't want to do collaborative anymore. At that point, not only am I, but my entire firm we're conflicted out, and now everybody has to start all over. So that's really how the collaborative process works. And then if either of those process options don't work for you, there's always litigation. Now, litigation doesn't mean you're running to court, but it definitely means it's not the other 2 process options, and court is always going to be an option.
It sounds like it has to do with just how acrimonious the divorce might be.
I think that that's true to some degree. I mean, mediation and collaborative are self-selecting processes, so everybody has to agree to be in it. But I have seen, what seems to be very, very hostile people go through a collaborative divorce, and mediation for that matter. But yes, I mean, I think I agree with you that if people are really they're stuck in their positions and they're not willing to look differently, and they're so incredibly angry. A lot of people think they're going to go to court and they're going to get their day in court, and the judge is going to, give them everything because their husband or their wife did X, Y, Z. And then they find out that that's not how it happens. And therefore, sometimes after that, they may be interested in collaborative or mediation.
And it's different state to state, right? You could have some states, it's a whole different deal if you're married under 5 years, whether you have no property, if you have children or no children. So it probably is a good idea to do your research and maybe call someone like you for a bit of advice.
Absolutely. So I only practice in New York, so I can't speak to the other states. Mm-hmm. But what I can say is I know that they are very different. And it is incredibly important, whether you buy my book, whether you buy any book for that matter, or research on Google or whatever it is you do, you should absolutely contact an attorney that's in the jurisdiction, not only just the state, but you also want to speak to somebody who's in your county to kind of find out exactly how the state is going to look at your specific situation. And also, as I said, the county, because you want to see how the judges are going to be handling whatever your particulars are for your case.
You also talk in your book about what to expect when it comes to child custody, child arrangements.
Right. So one of the things I talk about in the book, and it really is one of the new rules, is the fact that custody has shifted so much in the last 10 to 15 years. Back in the day, it would be the father would get every other weekend and he'd get Wednesday dinners, and that's just not the case anymore. Now, very often, courts are giving 50-50 custody. Fathers are coming in and saying, I want equal time with my children. And I say, great, let's do that. So there's been a very, very large shift. And when we talk about custody, there is the legal custody, which is the joint decision-making in regards to your children. And when I say decisions, I mean usually it's education, religion, and medical. And then there's the access schedule, and that's what you're referring to. And that's really, which house the child's going to sleep in every night.
The other thing I love that it says in your notes here is you talk to people about how to heal during the divorce process and even after.
Absolutely. I mean, I focus a lot on that in the book because in going through it specifically, I say, you need to exert self-care because at the end of the day, if your needs are so far in the bottom of the pile, you're not going to be strong enough to help take care of all the people you need to take care of. And divorce is hard. It really is. It's an emotionally hard job. I say all the time, it's another full-time job. So it's difficult, and you need to be ready for it. You need to be mentally prepared, financially prepared, everything. But while you're going through it, you need to take a little time for yourself. I always say whether it's exercise, whether it's yoga, whether it's whatever it is you need to do, therapy. It's important to be as strong as you can possibly be going through it. And then, obviously, hopefully that strength will carry forward even after the divorce.
Jacqueline, you also talk about signs that you can show people to say maybe it is time to speak to a divorce lawyer, or here are some signs maybe you want to hold off. What do you tell people? How do you define that?
Well, a lot of times when people will come to me and they'll say, I just want to be educated about divorce. I'm not sure I want to get divorced, but I want to be educated. And I say, one of the things you want to think about is if you're in a situation where you're with your spouse and you're able to, go away for a weekend or just do something where you can kind of strip all the outside stresses of life, whether it be children, money, mortgage, whatever it is, your job, and really, spend time alone. And if you spend time alone and realize that this person is someone that you still truly enjoy, then that could be a sign that there's something worth saving.
Jacqueline, thank you so much. That is her new book. Check out her website. Jacqueline Newman, thank you so much.
If you're over 50, imagine you could turn back the clock on your stiff, achy joints 10, even 20 years. Imagine you could do this without products that